Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you if you're listening to the recording, and try to make this as helpful as possible. And, along the way, if you have questions, I guess you can beep in. I don't know if Caitlin can moderate that, but it'd be good to have dialogue too. I mean, I have enough content to go an hour or more, but conversation engagement is always really powerful. So want to kind of just do an overview of what health and wellness and the goal facilitation process is, and then dive into, some principles of behavior change that, this isn't going to be a test for, a health promotion exam or a course, but I think these concepts can help you understand, all right, this is why I might do this or that to help set successful goals. And then look at a particular strategy, an integrative behavior change strategy that I use in coaching, that I was trained on at Duke University, Duke Integrative Medicine, and then look at some other principles from more recent behavior change that I think are helpful. So I'd like to start off, I like poetry. I like nature poetry. Mary Oliver, we lost her a few years ago, but the summer day at the end, she says, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And so that kind of energy, this purpose and vision and meaning often is something that I coach around, and is helpful to people to have that when they set their goals. So it's kind of like this pull that keeps people moving forward because it resonates with their value and what they truly want in life. So just a note on health and wellness. I think it's pretty common nowadays to know that health and wellness is a holistic concept. It's comprehensive. The medical community is very much more accepting of behavioral health issues now, anxiety, depression, bipolar syndrome, and things like that affect your physical health, social determinants of health, where we live, our financial situation, the education we have, they all affect health and well-being. So, considering the whole person, social isolation is a big thing nowadays in terms of behavioral health, also physical health. When you're isolated, that those health areas tend to go down. So it's about wholeness, it's about integrative, all these parts fitting together. So just that kind of laying that as a foundation for what I'm talking about in terms of health and wellness and well-being. So just want to get a little information. I know we just have a few people on the call here right now, but it's anonymous. You can say it or not, but I don't know if you have a poll. Okay, there it is. So do you commonly set goals? And if you do, are you successful most of the time, like 75 or more? You set goals and maybe half the time or so you accomplish your goals, or do you struggle? You try to set goals, but you struggle, or you don't set goals at all. So just trying to get a sense of where the audience is at on this. And I probably shouldn't self-disclose, but I do set goals. I do not tend to do it formally, though, as much as I might journal and things like that, and have my ideas out there, and just make it a part of my day. But so there's different ways of going about it. Is that working, Caitlin?
Can you see the answers?
I can't.
Okay.
Maybe
I think maybe it'll pop up when I end the poll. Did everyone get their answers in? Okay. Let's end it. And I'm going to share the results. Here we go.
Okay, good. So that's a good distribution there, kind of the bell curve. So a little bit of everything there, which is usually what I get. So hopefully this is helpful to all the categories, and thanks for participating in that. So let me see. So just generally, the goal facilitation process is really clarifying what is important to you. You know, in my current job, I probably coach 40 to 70 people a week. And probably a third to a half or more, I hear the word willpower come up, or the concept of willpower, if they don't say it specifically, which is like kind of going upstream, going against the tide, you know, like making a decision to do something that I don't really want to do, but I have to have this willpower to do it. And hopefully by the time we get done with this talk, we kind of dismiss willpower as being the number one force behind what you do. So really, what is it that you want to do with your one wild and precious life? What is important to you? So clarifying that, looking at the long view to say, all right, how does this fit into what I want in life? Is it about relationships? Is it about my job success? Is it about doing certain things with my time in the community, in my home life? You know, what's important to me? And then how does my health fit into that? How can good health fit into this idea of being around for my family, or, you know, rehabbing my house or something like that, or, you know, making a career shift, or being promoted within the company or something like that. So, and then, you know, once you have that vision, starting close in, starting with, all right, what's the first step? And what do I have to learn something? I want to eat more of a vegetarian dietary pattern, but I have to learn how to select fruits and vegetables, and I need to know how to store them and prepare them and what tastes good. So I'm going to have to learn a little bit about vegetarian cooking and, you know, what's out there. And if I'm going to eat vegetarian mostly, then how do I combine foods to get enough amino acids to make a complete protein? So, you know, so there may be some learning to do. So these are steps we take to get, you know, to the longer term, the goal. So it's about planning, taking incremental steps, and negotiating challenges, because challenges will come up. That's what life is. It's a bunch of challenges, a series of changes and challenges. And then utilizing and learning about resources, including people resources. I mean, we're social creatures. We engage with other people. So having other people help us along the way with invisible and visible health is very important. And then celebrating, you know, getting these positive emotions, the positivity, and having these neurons fire that send us signals to say, that's something I want. You know, it's like if we're hunter gatherers and we pick a berry off the bush, that tastes good, I want more of that. If it's bitter, I don't want more of that. So we want to have these, we want to be able to intentionally celebrate our positive steps, even if they're small. So it's about self-regulation. The first definition is from a psychologist. So generally, you know, it's about behaving in your best interest to achieve long-term goals and resonating with your deepest values. So I'm going to repeat this over and over again. You know, it's important to you, it resonates with your values. And so you're setting goals that are congruent with what you believe in. And then more technically, from social cognitive theory, it's about self-monitoring. It's about keeping track of what you're eating. If you're trying to lose weight, you know, your exercise, your physical activity, maybe you're taking medication to lose weight. So you got medication adherence, you know, other things, or you have a health condition that affects your appetite or your sleeping, which can affect your weight management. So, you know, monitoring your sleeping, you know, if you have sleep apnea, putting your mask on, or, you know, taking any therapeutic approach you need to get good sleep. Goal setting, feedback. We'll talk about all these things, the reward we just talked about, and getting social support. So just kind of real briefly on goal setting theory, lots of evidence out there. Locke and Latham were kind of the biggies in goal setting theory, but before that, you know, Michael O'Donnell used to be the the president of the American Journal of Health Promotion. Then he went on to Michigan, and he's got some other gig now, but he's getting up there in age, so he's kind of phasing out. But he's got this AMSOA, where awareness, motivation, skills, and opportunities is what AMSOA stands for. Those 4 areas that contribute to behavior change. Awareness is like taking a health risk assessment or doing a health fair where you kind of
Hi
learn
there.
information. And he says there's
Hi,
no
do you have an-
scientific data around this, but to put a weight on the distribution, but he says awareness is really only counts for about 5% of behavior change. Motivation, skills, opportunities have a higher percent of influence. And so motivation is really that vision and that what is valuable to you and what pulls you to make steps in the direction you want to go. And then skills is this goal setting, how to set goals, how to learn how to take action, how to learn how to, if you want to be have a stronger skeletal muscular system and you don't quite know how to rehab your knee, it's learning how to rehab your knee, what exercises to balance out the front and back of your knee muscles and do that effectively so you don't hurt yourself more, so learning those skills. But then Locke and Latham has the goal setting theory that, kind of basically what SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, time-based goals are based on. They studied over 40,000 people and 100 different, doing 100 different tasks in the field, in workplaces, in simulations, in the laboratory. So kind of across the spectrum. So it's really a valid theory. And what some of the highlights of what they found is the best goals, the most productive goals are specific. I want to feel better is not specific. I want to, in 3 months, I want to be walking 5 days a week in the morning for 30 minutes is specific. So, this is what I'm going to do. So if someone was looking in on your life and also could see your specific thoughts, they could say, all right, he did that. So that's specific enough. I can't look in on your life and say, are you feeling better? I can't really tell that. So, and that they're difficult, but not too difficult. If it's so difficult, if you've never run before and you're going to run the Boston Marathon and finish, that's probably too difficult. But if you've never run before and you want to run a 5K, well, then that's difficult, but that's doable. And so things that affect the direct, goals and the outcome of the goal, or direct attention. These are in science, it's the mediating variables. Goals can direct your attention to what you want to do. I mean, that's kind of obvious. They also energize you, and especially when it's something that's really important to you, they get you excited, especially if you can think about this every day. I'm going to feel good on my vacation after I lose these 10 pounds, and I'm going to be able to surf and ride my bike and enjoy my grandchildren. And, and you're thinking about that every day, that energizes you. It also keeps you persistent and keeps you going. And then, and also kind of can get you thinking about, all right, what do I also need to learn? This discovery or task relevant things I need to learn to be able to be more successful. And then another thing to think about when setting your goals, and these are questions we ask as coaches, and I'm a board certified coach, and this is on the board certification exam is readiness to change. You're looking at importance and confidence, and usually we scale it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being low importance, 10 being high. How do you feel about this goal of exercising 5 times a week for 30 minutes, in 3 months? And so you're trying to get people to be about 7, 8, 9, or 10 on that scale. So it's important enough that they're going to be energized to do it. And then confidence is a different concept. it can be very important to you, but you may not feel like you have the skill to exercise, like, let me use that lower body, lean body mass, attainment or strength. You're not quite sure how to do these exercises. So, the confidence may be lower, and that's points to, all right, I need to figure out ways to do this better. Other variables when they're in play, help goal performance, or feedback, getting good feedback. Of course, at work, are we doing our job well? And if I'm not, what specifically do I need to learn to do it better? Same with our health. Do I feel good after I go for a walk? And this eating program and this physical activity program, am I losing weight? So getting feedback is important. And then task complexity. This is where you don't want the task to be too complex, or else you won't stick with it. So learning goals can be a part of health goals. Just like I said about the vegetarian diet, sometimes before you start eating a bunch of vegetables, you need to learn, all right, what vegetables do I like? How much do they cost? How do I cook them? How do they go together? How can I flavor them in a way that is appetizing to me, so that I will consistently and sustainably eat a vegetarian diet? And then finally, this self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the confidence in your ability to do a specific task. And so we have agency in many things, but sometimes when we're learning new things, our self-efficacy is a little bit low.
Douglas, Robert Campbell had a question. He said, is there a benefit to having a partner or friend to participate with you in your goals?
Absolutely. That's great. Robert was a person?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. And absolutely, and it is individual, but we are social creatures. So people, when we have others who support our goals and our activities, that can really enhance our movement and our adherence to those activities. Some people are more individual. They like to go out and exercise on their own because it's a chance to clear their mind, or maybe they, think about what they need to do. So it is individual, but very much so. There's lots of research that group exercise can be very helpful for continuation and adherence to programs. So real quickly, behavioral beliefs are your belief that a behavior will result in a specific outcome, that brisk walking will improve my cardiorespiratory fitness. If you don't believe that, then it's probably not likely you're going to do the behavior. Studying for the exam will improve my score on the exam. If you don't believe that, then you probably won't study for the exam, So, and then also the value of the outcome is important too. Well, I want to get an A on the exam, or I don't care what I get on the exam, so you probably won't study for the exam. But if you value it, like I want to feel better and my fitness is better, then more likely to do it. So again, that value in your belief and the behavior itself. And then self-efficacy, that's just confidence in your ability to complete a task. How do you gain that? Number one is through doing it yourself, self-mastery, progressively learning it. But you can also gain it when you see other people doing it, so especially people who are like you. So maybe you're same age, same fitness level, similar background. If you see them doing it and say, well, I can do that because I'm kind of like that person. Social persuasion, that question about having other people do it with you. When you get encouraged by others, especially when it's positive, and getting feedback, that can help your confidence. And then finally, this is just kind of the bodily response. When you go for a brisk walk and it feels good, if you eat a meal mindfully and it tastes good, but you don't feel stuffed afterwards, and you feel that in your body, that can help you gain more. I can contain my portions. because it feels good. From social cognitive theory, this concept of reciprocal determinism, that our thoughts, our experiences, our personalities are one factor. The environment is another factor, especially the social or the physical environment. And then the behavior itself, they all kind of interplay with each other. So maybe you're not, during the pandemic in my neighborhood, people were all locked in, but then, I saw people starting to walk around, and maybe they had masks on, but they were walking together. And so if you're a person that felt like, hey, I'm not getting much activity, I don't know what to do, and you see your friends who are very much like you walking, you see that behavior, well, that could affect your own thinking about that behavior and say, I can do that too. And then, the neighborhood is flat. I'm in Dayton, Ohio, everything's flat around here. I grew up in Pittsburgh where everything's not flat. And so it's conducive to walking. So, just thinking about your whole environment and how seeing others do things can influence what you do. Self-determination theory. This is just this willpower concept, so in this theory, the main drivers of motivation are autonomy, that we do things and have a sense of agency and do it ourselves, that we do it well, competency, and that what we do impacts others in a positive way, relatedness. And sometimes when we start out, I'm working with a lot of people on a health plan whose doctors say, they need to quit smoking or lose weight. So they're on the far left of this. They don't have much interest, but their doctor told them to, I should exercise more. So that's external motivation. And we get more successful in doing behaviors when we internalize it, when it becomes, I value it. It's a part of who I am. And then finally, the most important, the most impactful motivation internally is when it feels good, when you can kind of get a sense that not only is this who I am, but man, this brings me alive. And it doesn't have to be this, fireworks all the time, but you kind of get a sense that this is really what I need. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If we don't have food and water security, if we don't feel safe walking in our neighborhoods, safety and food and water are going to come first before we go jogging, so having those things taken care of. And those are kind of what they call deficiency needs. Once we have them, we no longer pursue that. But the self-actualization, which Maslow talked about, was this: what's my purpose? How am I giving to the world? How am I kind of lifting not only myself up, but others? Those increase when we do those things. So we even want more of that. So kind of making sure you have the basics cared for, and then, getting more ambitious with your health goals. So the process in coaching, about goal setting and figuring out what to do and where to go. First, starting with the vision. And I'll talk about this in a second. And then, all right, how am I doing in these areas? Maybe you already know where you want to focus, but sometimes a health risk assessment, I'm assuming probably in your wellness program, you do that. You look at, how you're doing socially, emotionally, physical. Do I have any heart disease, diabetes, anything like that? How am I doing physical activity wise? What's my nutrition? That work site well-being, do I enjoy my job? Am I getting the most out of it, et cetera? So those assessments can help you define which area you want to focus on. And then that readiness question, how important it is, how much confidence do I have? And then setting goals, and then preparing for action. How am I going to take these incremental steps? And then once you get going, you're going to run into barriers and challenges, problem solving, and celebrating your successes, and then maintaining your successes. We'll talk about all these things here. So the vision, some basic question is, in 6 months, at my optimal health, for me, we're not trying out for the Olympics unless you are, but what's optimal for me? What does that look like? What does it feel like? And what's important to me about that? What is meaningful? If I don't change, what will my life be like? If I do change, what will my life be like? So just I heard this program maybe about 4 months ago, Hidden Brain. It was this Cornell psychologist talked about purpose, and people that have a clear purpose and are able to kind of tap into their purpose daily or remind themselves are usually more successful, get things done, achieve things, and they their health and well-being is better. And vision, your purpose and a goal are different. Purpose is like well, a goal is something you achieve. So in Star Wars, the goal is blowing up the Death Star. The purpose is saving the universe and having the force behind you. All right, so it's not something that ends, but it's always pulling you. A goal is something that you want an end to. And in 3 months, you're going to be doing this. So people who had vision, there's another study out that was done at a university, and students who wrote about vision, their purpose, and then other students wrote about their stressors, sort of like cathartic writing, what are the things going on in my life, and then other students who were the control group didn't write about anything. And they tracked how many visits these students had to the health clinic on campus, and the people who wrote about the vision showed up at the health clinic less. So there was a measure of health benefits. So again, I talked about the health risk assessment, looking at these different areas that you might want to work on for your health and well-being. And there are a lot of areas. I mean, maybe stress management or being able to relax is an area that becomes before weight loss or anything else, because you just need to be able to stop having these chronic stress responses where you feel agitated or upset or strained or tight, and that's something you want to work on. Or maybe it's the social relationships. Maybe it's decluttering your house. That can have an impact on your mental state, and you're feeling like you have time to go exercise. So, kind of choosing the area that you want to focus on is important. And the handouts that Caitlin sent to you, there's a handout on vision. There's also a handout on clarifying your areas. So just the worksheet there, you can kind of make a tick mark on, what area you want to work on. So that can be very helpful. And then goal setting, setting this short-term goal of about 2 to 3 to 4 months can be very helpful. That's not something you're going to start doing the next week or even the week after, but in 2 or 3 months, you'll be there and making that as specific as possible. So specific, something you can measure, something that's action-oriented, something you either do physically or do mentally. And what I mean by do mentally is maybe it is, all right, I've got to put down my to-do list, or I need to think about how I'm going to prepare food in a healthy way. So that can be an action step when you think about something discursively that way. And then figuring out, is it important to me, making sure it's meaningful to you. And then also thinking about your strengths. Person who asked a question about social engagement and your goals. If your strength is a people person and you want to exercise more and you're great at organizing people in groups, well, organize a walking group, organize some kind of, use that strength, that skill, and dovetail it and translate it, transfer it to your health situation, your health area. That can be very fulfilling. When you use your strengths, it's impactful. There's nothing worse than a job where you're not using your strengths and you're trying to do something someone else wants you to do in a way they want you to do it. There's nothing worse than that. And then being time bound also with, putting deadlines do help. Having some idea when you're going to do it and, how long you have to do it. And realistic and relevant too. So, again, is it a little bit beyond my reach, but not so far that it's just never going to happen. But you want to make it, difficult enough where it gives you some energy, but also it resonates with your values. And then when you start preparing for action, somebody says, well, I'm going to start exercising next week. And okay, when are you going to do that? And what's going to prompt you to do that? Some people say, well, I'm going to put a message on my phone. I'm going to put a sticky note up. I'm going to put my shoes by the door because I always go out that door and the shoes remind me to do it. So getting your plan of action and making your environment conducive to doing that plan in an easy way. This is where social commitment comes in handy too, is voicing it to other people. Because when you voice it to other people, you have a sense of accountability. They may ask you about it. None of us like to be embarrassed or called out, so that gives it, not in a negative sense necessarily, but, we have a little bit of uneasiness. So if we voice it publicly, then, and when I say publicly, that you choose how you do that, but you don't have to splash it all over the internet. But when someone else knows your intentions, that can be helpful. And then the celebration doesn't mean you have to go buy something on Amazon if you complete a week of your diet. You can, and you don't have to buy pizza if you're trying to, but celebration can be as simple as feeling and saying to yourself, you did a good job. I did a great job. And feeling that and hanging with it. There's a good psychologist who's a kind of neuropsychologist, Rick Hansen, who has a very, writes very clear, concise books about how to grow the positive feelings and how to absorb those positive feelings so you kind of hang with it, because your brain is saying, hey, that's good. And those neural pathways are developing and they're linking it with the behavior you just did. And it's going to reinforce that, and it's going to make it more automatic because you have a positive, have all these positive neurochemicals floating around your brain in association with that health activity. Self-monitoring or tracking is very important, especially like for weight management. I know sometimes people balk at it, but it's really in the research. If you can track everything you eat, or most things you eat, or maybe the important, the stickler things like fat, calories and stuff like that, if you can track that, and not forever, but so that you really have a good sense of what you're doing now and where the opportunities are to make different choices, that can be very helpful. That gives you immediate feedback. You know what you're putting into your body. And there's all kind of apps now, Lose It, MyFitnessPal. A lot of that is free. The premium part of those might cost something, but the free stuff is really good enough. I like the old paper and pencil stuff, but so people, there's lots of ways to track now, and the apps can make it really convenient. Some of the apps, you can take a picture of the nutrition label and it puts it right in there. So, or a QR code. And then restructuring your physical environment. We got through the holidays. How many people had a bunch of cookies and candies laying on the counter that's right there? Well, what's that going to stimulate? It's going to stimulate eating cookies and candy. If you don't bring them into the house, or you put them up high, and you put fruit on the counter, well, that's going to stimulate eating of the fruit. So, really looking at your physical environment and also your social environment. If you have people knocking on your door. Hey, you want to go for a walk? It's going to be more likely you're going to go for a walk. Or you have a Pilates class or yoga class or a boot camp class to go to. That's part of your environment that will shape your behavior. And then once you start in on the behavior and how to maintain it, think about how you can be a champion for others, how you might not formally be a teacher of exercise, but you're kind of helping another friend who's more of a novice, do the class. And so that can help you maintain your newly formed habits. Real quickly here, couple of newer behavior change theories. Michelle Seeger's out of Michigan, PhD in psychology, but the master's is in kinesiology, which is exercise science. So a lot of her examples are around exercise. No Sweat was her first book about behavior change, but with a lot of exercise kind of examples. And then BJ Fogg's out of Stanford, and he has this tiny habits method. So Michelle Seeger kind of has this approach, meaning, awareness, permission, and strategies. You don't really need to focus on that, because what I want to get to is this why. We've kind of heard the reason, the why you have, and again, it gets to that social determination theory. Is it external or is it distal? Meaning, is it far off? A lot of times, I've been in health promotion for 30 years. So when we first started out, you take a health risk assessment. Do you have a risk for heart disease? And that's why you want to exercise, because I don't want to have a heart attack. Well, it takes years, if not decades, to basically, develop heart disease and plaque and, blockages, so that when you eat the donut now, you're not going to have a heart attack. It's going to happen way down the road. So it's like putting your hand on the stove and leaving it there for 20 years and then it burns. So it's not a good reason to think about, necessarily long, really far off things that could happen to you. Oftentimes it just starts to feel like a chore, and you do it, and then you're not seeing any feedback with these wrong whys. So she says, finding that right why, which is a more proximal or more immediate kind of sensation or feeling you get from doing the health behavior. In this case, maybe exercise, where when you go for that walk, even the first time, it feels good. I'm outside, I see the sun, I'm moving my body, this feels good. And so that's the gift that she says keeps on giving, that you want to keep experiencing that in some way. And so really focusing in on this kind of right why, this beneficial impact can be very helpful. And then the BJ Fogg method, he says behavior happens when motivation, ability, and a prompt or a trigger occur at the same time. And so on this, the y-axis, the vertical axis, motivation, right now, I don't know, it seems kind of trite, the New Year's resolution. I mean, it can be, this is a new year, a new start, so there can be high motivation at this time. So you might be doing something that you don't normally do, like going exercising for 30 minutes. But if that motivation wanes, then you're not going to cross that action potential line. So habits are mainly on that bottom right part of the graph here, where it's easy to do and you're prompted to do it. And so his method, he gives an example of, all right, you brush your teeth all the time, that's a given, but flossing your teeth is not a given. So whatever the new action is, you want to have an anchor, something you always do. And then with the anchor, right after you do that, or with that, you do the new behavior, but you do it in a way that's really easy. So he gives an example of flossing one tooth, one tooth, eventually going to work up to them all, and make that simple. And after you do it, you feel, you go, yeah, or say something, yeah, or fist pump, or, like when someone does something in sports, they kind of bodily render it, and feel it. That's important. So that kind of helps lock in this new behavior and makes it more automatic, because you're anchoring it to something you always do, and then making the new behavior simple. So again, it's a simple. There's another book with Kazon principle, basically making small steps, but also enjoying those small steps and being intentional about that.
We had another question.
Yeah.
Jennifer said, we don't buy cookies or sweets in the house, but during the holidays, they were overly abundant in the office. What do you suggest to avoid eating them when they are easily accessible?
Yeah.
Oop. Sorry, Doug, I accidentally muted you. I'm trying to unmute you. Sorry, we totally didn't hear what you said.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I meant to mute myself and I muted you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I saw that come up there. Well, that's a good question. As a coach, part of coaching is you don't tell people what to do. You kind of ask them what their insights are to do. It's a tough situation when, hey, it's right there. Some strategies that people use when they're at a buffet or at a party is ahead of time say, all right, there are a few things I really like, and I'm going to have a small amount of them, but I'm not going to take everything, And so being intentional about, all right, I really love the cheese fondue, and so I'm going to have a little bit of that, but I'm not going to have all that chocolate stuff, and being intentional and having a kind of a plan before you go in ahead of time. Making sure you're not starving hungry when you walk into the office kitchenette or whatever it is, and drinking water during the day so you feel fuller from the water. And then if you feel comfortable and is appropriate, being proactive and being assertive and saying, hey, it'd be good if we didn't have so much of this around. Maybe next year we can limit that or do something differently, and that may be a stretch for some and maybe disruptive, but there are ways, like you don't want to put it on Caitlin, but you can say, well, the wellness program there said we're going to have crudité or chopped up vegetables instead of chocolates and stuff. So I don't know. What are your ideas on that?
I love that. I always say hungry people make bad decisions. So, if you're going to the office, there's going to be snacks and stuff around the holidays. My advice would be making sure you have your own healthy snacks at your desk. So, because if you go in the office, you're starving, you have nothing to eat. There's cookies there. Yeah, you're probably going to eat the cookies, right? You're hungry. You got nothing around. It's easy. So making the path to health easy is really the key. So having your healthy snacks there with you, and having things that you enjoy, and not being, maybe eating breakfast before you go into the office, right? So you're not skipping meals,
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Caitlin. So underlying, make it easy. Make it the easy choice. The willpower thing, willpower can work sometimes, which when I hear people talk about willpower, it's going against the tide, it's going upstream, it's doing something you don't really want to do, and that doesn't last. A psychologist who was a part of a diabetes prevention program that I led would come in, and he'd talk about willpower, and the data shows that willpower is an exhaustible resource. It wanes when you get hungry, it wanes at the end of the day, it wanes when you have all of a sudden rush of expectations and decisions coming at you. If you go in front of a judge, you want to go in front of that judge in the morning after he or she's eaten breakfast, or right after lunch after he or she has eaten lunch, because they're going to have a lot of glucose in their brain and be able to make complex decisions and, think about different things. If they're tired, then they might not make some very good decisions. So making it easy is key to doing the behaviors you want to do. So those are good examples there, Caitlin. Let's see. So, New Year's resolutions can be good, and it could be a good time of year. I just want to bring up this concept to this, and you can agree or not, or maybe you have your own seasonality. But in the northern hemisphere here, and I'm assuming you guys are in Ohio, where we have 4 seasons. There can be a different level of energy with the seasons, and really, kind of winter. If you think about nature, winter is a time for hibernation, and where the seeds are underground, and they're doing stuff underground, but they're not ready to sprout yet. So in some ways, winter is a time to consider your vision and to germinate that, and to kind of gain more thought and inspiration. But then when the spring comes and stuff outside, you see the sprouts coming out and the leaves forming and flowers blooming. That's when the energy kind of comes up. And so really starting to take steps, physical steps, or whatever your health area is at that point, ramps up. And then summer's high time. You're into the flow. It's high energy. Maybe you're kind of met a goal and wanted to expand that goal. And then autumn can be symbolically a time where you kind of reap the harvest. You kind of reflect on, hey, what have I done? Look at these accomplishments. What have I learned? Really, it's really important to take time to reflect on, what have I learned? What kind of skills have I learned? Where have I improved my self-efficacy, and how can I help others with this, new skills and new information that I've gained, and that can help you maintain your momentum throughout the year. So thinking about seasonality that way can be fun. And so I just wanted to leave you with this. This is another nature poet, David White, who he's Irish and English, but he lives in Seattle. And the poem is Sometimes, but it's about asking the beautiful questions. And I think this gets to, Mary Oliver's What Will You Do With Your One Wild and Precious Life? But I was just going to read you this poem, and you can maybe something will resonate with you here. Sometimes if you move carefully through the forest, breathing like the ones in the old stories, who could cross a shimmering bed of leaves without a sound, you come to a place whose only task is to trouble you with tiny but frightening requests, conceived out of nowhere, but in this place beginning to lead everywhere. Requests to stop what you are doing right now and to stop what you are becoming while you do it. Questions that can make or unmake a life. Questions that have patiently waited for you. Questions that have no right to go away. One of the concepts he talks about all the time is stop what you are doing right now. Stop that conversation. Stop that old conversation. I'm all stressed out. I can't eat right. I'm never gonna lose weight. Stop that. Stop that conversation. And in some ways have the courage, but the interest and maybe just the curiosity to ask another question. What would it be like if I felt good? If I ate the way I wanted to eat, if I moved my body in a different way, if I found out some ways to relax my body, to ground myself, to enhance what I do at work, to enhance my social relationships, just without not having to know exactly, but just asking that new question, starting a new conversation, and giving yourself just time to create a vision. And so that can be helpful too, especially, in the season of winter, where we're kind of thinking about letting those that new energy form into maybe specific goals. So anyway, I just throw that out there because I find that helpful. And I often when I work with people at the beginning of sessions, beginning of coaching relationships on that vision, is really finding out, when they want to stop this conversation of being unhealthy and what does it mean to be healthy for them, and without judgment, thinking about how that could be and why that could be important to you. And then that can lead to specific goals. All right. Any more thoughts or questions or any more resonances?
Well, I love that quote that you just read. I was just reading a story about how someone was like speaking abundance into their life. So something they said to themselves is, I'm so lucky, everything works out for me every day. And they really started noticing that everything worked out for them. And, them saying that, is that necessarily related? No. But I think when you are believing negative things about yourself, negative stories, self-limiting statements, you subconsciously block yourself from being successful in your goals. So it's really important that even in this moment, if you don't really believe, oh, I can be healthy, I can live this healthy lifestyle, tell yourself that you can be successful in that anyway, because the second you don't believe it is the second that you prohibit yourself really from being successful. Yeah, Mindy said, mindset is everything. I agree. That's so important.
Yeah, that's great. Caitlin, thanks for that comment. And Mindy, thanks for the mindset. That's a term now that's being used and really important. And so, that positive self-talk, another researcher in positive psychology, Barbara Fredrickson, her book Positivity, and then she's got a lot of research out there, like gratitude. One thing that's talked about a lot these days is having a gratitude journal, or some way that you think about and record or even verbalize things that you're grateful for at the end of the day. The research shows that leads to better mental health status. But these positive emotions, which the research shows that we have more positive emotions throughout the day, they're just kind of smaller and we give them less time because there's a negativity bias in human beings and in animals. It's evolutionarily beneficial because if we're gonna hunter gatherers and we're going for that bush of berries, but there's a tiger, we need to be more aware of the negative thing that could happen to us, because if we go for the bush and get eaten, there's not another day. If we avoid the tiger and also avoid the berries, there'll be another day to get the berries. So there's a negativity bias, why we pay attention to negative things more. But, we don't live in the forest right now, so we don't need that. So if we can help cultivate and foster positive emotions more, like gratitude and joy and love and interest and appreciation and things like that, and be more intentional about that. Barbara Fredrickson says, kind of like to Caitlin's point, is it broadens and builds. It broadens our perspective of the world and broadens our ideas of what we could do to get to where we want to get to, instead of being narrowly focused. When we're stressed out and negatively centered, we only have one way, and that's only one way to go. But when we're more positive, our repertoire of possibilities opens up. And so being intentional about that abundance, that mindset, and about what is positive and what I'm grateful for can be very helpful. And that can go along with your goals and your action steps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think something that we can all grasp from this presentation is that really being aware of what you want to accomplish and, following that SMART method to create goals can really contribute to your success, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you don't know what you want to achieve, how are you going to achieve it? Right. So writing out your goals, making them specific, measurable, breaking them down. He said, Doug said to have a long term and a shorter term, and knowing your why. I think this all really greatly will contribute to everyone's success. Does anyone else have any questions? We do have a challenge coming up. I'm going to announce it today, transformation challenge for January. So this can give you that little boost of motivation to figure out your goals. And if you want to join the challenge, it starts next Wednesday. But other than that, thank you, Doug, so much for joining us. This was so insightful. So we really appreciate it.
All right. All the best to you guys. Have a great year.
Awesome. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.